Hi, my name is Dr. John Douillard here at LifeSpa.com, and today I want to talk about a very important, newly researched Ayurvedic breathing technique, pranayama technique called Kapalabhati. Kapala means skull, bhati means to illuminate. It literally means with your breath to oxygenate or illuminate your brain or your skull. Science shows that that's exactly what happens. You see an increased amount of oxygenation of your brain chemistry, your heart, and your circulatory system from doing the Kapalabhati breathing, which is really important because I've written a lot of articles on the brain lymphatics. Ayurvedic medicine talked about brain lymphatics thousands of years ago. They've only been recently discovered 8 years ago at the University of Virginia, and they found that these brain lymphatics, called glymphatics, drain about 3 pounds of chemicals and plaque out of your head every year while you sleep. And they're linked to a host of health concerns, including anxiety, depression, cognitive decline, inflammation, infection, and even autoimmunity. So getting the waste out of your brain turns out to be like a really important thing. And Ayurveda talked about using nasya techniques, many breathing techniques, head massage techniques. I've written a ton of articles about brain lymphatic therapies. Just go to LifeSpa.com, go to the search bar, type in brain lymphatics. You'll see all those articles. Kapalabhati breathing is a yogic cleansing breathing technique to get rid of kapha, particularly the kapha in your head called tarpika kapha. It's also good for vata and pitta if you don't do it in excess. So I'm going to teach you how to do this breathing technique, but we're never going to do it in excess, so you're okay for vata, pitta, or kapha. But it's specifically for moving the kapha out of your head, out of the tarpika kapha, which is the brain lymphatics that look like a mohawk haircut that can wrap around into the back of your ear. Those are the sagittal sinus and transverse sinus, where they found these brain lymphatics only just a short time ago, about 8 years ago. So this is a reason why we should really think about this exercise. And the research on this breathing technique is noteworthy. I'm going to go through all of that in a minute, but I want to describe the technique for you first and help you understand how it does these things. If you put your hands on your lower abdomen and then you sort of pretend you're going to cough, like with your mouth closed, you would do something like that. And your lower abdominals would contract from your navel to your pubic bones. So you put your hands on there to sort of help get the feeling of those lower abdominals contracting, and that's the Kapalabhati breathing. It's the exact opposite of how we normally breathe. We normally breathe, the diaphragm relax, and we exhale. So the exhalation is passive normally. And when you inhale, diaphragm contracts and pulls the air down, and that's very active because your diaphragm is now contracting to make you inhale. So normal breathing, the inhalation is active and the exhalation is passive. Where in the Kapalabhati breathing, because you're using the secondary muscles of your breathing, the lower lobes of your lungs, lower abdominal muscles rather, you're actually creating an abdominal massage. So you're actually creating a forceful expulsion or an active exhalation by forcing your abdominals to contract. So the exhalation is active and the inhalation passive. Passive inhalation, active exhalation. Flipped from how we normally do it. Pretty cool, right? So what does that have to do with anything? Well, when you contract your abdominal muscles, you create an abdominal, diaphragmatic, cardiac massage. So it's an abdominal contraction, diaphragmatic massage, which then massages the heart, which is the cardiac massage. And on the heart is a cranial nerve called the vagus nerve, which regulates the amping up of your parasympathetic nervous system, which is your rest, digest, rebuild, rejuvenate nervous system, versus your fight or flight system, which is fight or flight, get away from a bear, save your life kind of nervous system, which in our world, we want to keep always thinking ways to dial down sympathetic and amp up parasympathetic. And of course, that's exactly what the science shows. That Kapalabhati breathing literally increases your parasympathetic activation. How? With the abdominal, diaphragmatic, cardiac massage, which triggers the vagus nerve on your heart that flips your brain into an alpha state and creates a parasympathetic dominance. I did research in the early 90s, way back when I wrote my first book, Body, Mind, and Sport. And we published research in the International Journal of Neuroscience that showed that when people breathe through their nose, they actually create if you do it properly, an abdominal diaphragmatic cardiac massage, flip the brain into an alpha state, and you get a brainwave coherence and alpha calm during vigorous exercise. And way back when I was trying to reproduce the runner's high in the zone, and that experience led me to understanding more and more about breathing, and Kapalabhati breathing is one of those techniques that does a very similar thing to trigger the exact same result. You would do this technique sitting on an empty stomach, best first thing in the morning or before noon, because it's an energizing technique, not a before bed technique, that's for sure. Okay, so some of the science behind this technique, it activates a visceral massage. The abdominal contraction creates an abdominal massage. I've written articles about stomach pulling and visceral massage that you might want to take a look at to get some of the science behind the benefits of that. Very, very important when you do a lower abdominal contraction and you're forcing that diaphragm up, you're actually increasing parasympathetic activation, which increases digestion, but also you're helping to separate the stomach from the diaphragm. So the diaphragm and the stomach are very anatomically close together, and they can get stuck together and adhere, and that stomach can compromise the diaphragm from being able to really contract completely and pull air down into the lower lobes of your lungs, activating the parasympathetic receptors in the lower lobes of your lungs that we do 26,000 times a day. If your stomach is pushed up, it's called upward moving digestion in Ayurveda, really common because of stress, right? And we get tightened up and the stomach gets pulled up. And this can cause a lot of undiagnosed issues of indigestion and food intolerances, which is why I write about this technique called stomach pulling and visceral massage and the Kapalabhati breathing, because you can imagine when you do that, that forces that diaphragm and it separates that diaphragm and stomach from getting themselves stuck or adhesed together, which is a really important piece of the puzzle, right? So that's how it activates the parasympathetic nervous system, causes visceral massage. By activating parasympathetics, it's also been shown to help people handle stress better. It supports emotional stability and mood stability because people handle stress more in a calm state versus an exhausting, save your life, run up a tree, fight or flight state. Studies also show that the Kapalabhati breathing activates what's called dead space, which is a weird name for it because it's the space in our lungs that very few people breathe into, which happens to be in the lower lobes of your lungs. The lower lobes of your lungs are where 70 to 80% of the oxygen and the blood is. Your lungs are a gravity-fed system. All the blood pools down in the lower part. Most of us breathe like rabbits, little tiny shallow breaths in and out 26,000 times a day. Up here are where the fight or flight receptors are. You see a bear in the woods, take an upper chest, gasping emergency breath, get up a tree, save your life. Very few of us breathe into the lower lobes of our lungs. Nose breathing has turbinates here that are engineered to drive the air into the lower lobes of your lungs. So you get the benefit of activating the lower lobe activation by keeping your mouth closed, which is very important. But when you do the Kapalabhati breathing and you force the air out of the lower lobes of your lungs by doing the abdominal diaphragmatic massage and forcing that air out into the brain chemistry, you're accessing the dead space. And that's what the studies show that Kapalabhati breathing does. It activates the dead space. Well, what's in the dead space that nobody breathes into, which is why they call it dead? And I was like, when I wrote my book, Body, Mind, and Sport, I was like, why do we have those lower lobes of your lungs if it's just dead space and we don't need it? The science shows you don't really need that lower lobe of your lungs with all the blood to get the oxygen in. But what they don't talk about is how important access to those lower lobes are for getting the waste out. And studies show that the lower lobes of your lungs are some of the primary waste removal channels of your body. They move most of the fat out of your body, toxic waste out of your body, CO2 out of your body by accessing those lower lobes of your lungs. Call it dead space. My whole first book, Body, Mind, Sport, was about teaching us how to create what's called respiratory efficiency. And I've written a lot of articles for free at LifeSpa.com on nasal breathing versus mouth breathing and how to do it. You really do need to make sure that you have full capacity into that dead space and not just walk around breathing only into these fight or flight emergency receptors 26,000 times per day, because that can add up to a very stressful life versus breathing here, which allows you to digest better, rebuild better, repair better. And with 70 to 80% of Americans having some type of digestive distress, don't we think we should be breathing into the lower lobes of our lungs that tell us that it's okay for us to digest, versus only breathing into the upper chest, which tells us that no, there's a bear chasing me and I'm not thinking about ordering pizza right now. It's too stressful for me at this point in time. So these are some of the effects that happen when we don't breathe right. And Kapalabhati breathing is one of those techniques to really amp up some of the benefits of pranayama. One of the most powerful pranayama breathing techniques. They all have their own unique research, but this one has some pretty phenomenal research, including balancing what's called metabolic syndrome. Metabolic syndrome is a metabolic concern having to do with extra weight around your belly. Studies show that the Kapalabhati breathing helps to distribute the fat better and lose abdominal weight, right? Because you're forcing that contraction, so you're activating energy in that area. Metabolic syndrome also includes high blood pressure, high blood sugar, and high cholesterol, and altered fat metabolism issues in your liver and gallbladder. And it's been shown to bring real balance in those issues as well. And how does it really do that? Is because there's receptors in your brain that are activated by the Kapalabhati, the brain increasing oxygenation in your brain. There's respiratory receptors that are activated, and there's abdominal or gut receptors that are activated. So when you do this breathing technique, you create this sort of global brain respiratory gut reaction that sends a kind of an endocrine metabolic message or reset message to the entire body. And it's been shown to stabilize insulin levels, lower blood pressure, lower blood sugar, lose belly fat, all these things from long-term use of Kapalabhati, which is pretty phenomenal. Another study showed that PCOS, polycystic ovarian syndrome, was balanced by using this particular breathing technique. And one of the hallmarks of PCOS is insulin resistance and prediabetes, all of which are a part of the metabolic syndrome. So if you can fix metabolic syndrome, you really do fix the upstream cause of the PCOS. So that doesn't, not surprising research that they both were supported with this particular breathing technique. The abdominal massage has been shown to have a powerful effect on the pancreatic function, shown to support better pancreatic enzyme production and insulin production as well. So there's been some great science there as well. So when you really look at all the science behind this exercise, pretty crazy. When you do it, you would always want to make sure that you're not have a full stomach. You don't have to worry about hyperventilation. Studies show that when you do this technique, the CO2 buildup in your body and blood doesn't happen. When after Kapalabhati breathing, they found that they had the same CO2 levels in the blood as when they were at rest. So you don't really build up the CO2 because you're activating the lower lobes of your lungs, which is how we get rid of the CO2. So you don't really run that risk. Even though when you first start to do this, if you do it too aggressively, you might get a little bit dizzy. That's just generally because you're not used to it. But you always want to check before you do any advanced breathing techniques. Check with your doctor, make sure you don't have high blood pressure, make sure that you're cleared to go with doing breathing exercises. That's also very, very important. All right, so what else about this breathing technique? Let's talk about how to do it. What I'm going to teach you how to do is how to do the breathing technique. And what I want you to do is take your hands and sit up straight, and sitting on a mat with your pelvis lifted a little bit. You can be on a chair with the back straight as well. Hands on your belly so you can find that abdominal contraction. So it looks something like this. And you can feel those abdominals pushing everything up. We're going to start by doing this 10 times. So the 10 breaths followed by a 30 to 60 second rest with our eyes closed, a little mini meditation. And then we do another round of 10 with about 30 to 60 second break, and then another round of 10. So we're going to do 3 rounds. Each time, as you get better at doing this, you can start to do it instead of really slow. You can start to pick up the pace. You can do 1 per second, or you can even do 2 per second. And that's kind of the track of increasing the intensity as you become more skilled at doing it. You don't get dizzy, you don't feel any side effects from doing it at all. But we're going to start by doing one round of 10 sort of on the slower side, and as you get better you can pick up the speed to 1 per second, that's 60 per minute, 2 per second, that's 120 per minute, but we're only going to do 10 at a time with a rest or a little meditation in between. So what we're going to do today is I'm going to teach you I'm going to do it with you, the first round of 10 followed by the meditation, and then you can continue doing the second and the third round yourself. Taking a little time in between gives you that little bit of a meditation, so your couple of minutes of doing Kapalabhati can be a really great breathing / mini meditation. Great way in just a couple of minutes to start your day with all these crazy benefits that we talked about today. We're talking about metabolic syndrome, pre-diabetes, the epidemic of our time is balanced by doing this amping up of parasympathetic activation and a resetting of your endocrine system. So pretty cool stuff. So here we go. If there's any questions, please go to my website, LifeSpa.com. Read the article with all the science about Kapalabhati breathing. Pretty amazing stuff. So here we go. We're going to sit comfortably with our eyes closed. Put your hands on your belly. Make sure you've practiced and you found that. And we're going to do our first round. Here we go. And just rest with your eyes closed. That surge of parasympathetics and oxygen in your brain makes your meditation very quickly more still and more silent. It's a very powerful technique. After about 30 seconds or a minute of that, whatever you like, you can do another round if you want to just pick up the pace of that, the intensity of that you can do in the second round, another meditation in between, and then you can do it again for your third and final round with the meditation. Remember, that breathing, forceful, amps up parasympathetic activation, amps up oxygenation in the brain. Your brain feels safe enough to relax, stop thinking, start feeling. So a powerful meditation technique to start your day. And it just takes a couple of seconds. Once again, check out the details of this technique on my website and just type in Kapalabhati breathing, and that article will pop right up at LifeSpa.com. Thanks for listening. I'm Dr. John Douillard. Do you like this video? Don't forget to subscribe and share.
This recording is brought to you by LifeSpa, where ancient Ayurvedic wisdom meets modern science. Get access to free health video newsletters by Dr. John at LifeSpa.com. These statements have not been evaluated by the FDA. These products are not intended to diagnose, treat, cure, or prevent any disease.